In the silence where others hear nothing, she begins to hear everything. For most, solitude is feared. It is a void, a dark space they rush to fill with noise, distractions, people, and endless validation. But for her, for the woman with no friends, solitude is not emptiness. It is the profound space where the self begins to whisper. When the world grows quiet, she begins to listen, not to others, but to her own soul. And it is here, in the sacred stillness, that something ancient begins to stir, something true. No longer defined by the gaze of others, she begins to define herself, not by what is reflected, but by what is revealed. She realizes that she is not the roles she played, the labels she was given, or the expectations others placed upon her. She is something deeper, something vast, something eternal. In solitude, her mind ceases to perform and her heart begins to remember. The questions come: who am I truly? What do I want? Not what others want from me. Why am I here? These are not easy questions. Most people run from them their entire lives. But she faces them head-on with no distractions to blur her vision. This is the beginning of real consciousness, the first step on the path of individuation that Jung described. Solitude strips away the false self. Without friends to impress, she stops performing. Without social mirrors, she sees herself directly. The masks fall away. The personas, crafted so carefully to be liked, to be loved, to be accepted, lose their power. And underneath, a woman in her raw truth, a soul unguarded, a spirit untouched by the world's projections. She begins to see that she was never truly alone, only disconnected from herself. And now, that connection begins to grow. Slowly, silently, she roots into her being. The silence that once felt empty now feels alive, rich, sacred. Because in that silence the self, the deep, archetypal self that Jung spoke of, emerges like a phoenix from the ashes. No applause greets her discovery. No audience watches her transformation. But this moment is more powerful than any crowd, because it is real. It is hers. And it marks the start of a lifelong union with the one person who will never leave her herself. What would you like me to expand next? Alone, without the comfort of companions to distract her or the echo of affirming voices to soothe her fears, she is left to face what most spend their lives avoiding: the darkness within. The woman with no friends has no place to hide from herself, and so, with trembling heart but unshaken will, she descends inward, into the unlit corridors of her soul. There she meets the shadow, not a monster in the night, not a villain to be vanquished, but the parts of herself long denied. Her rage, her jealousy, her deep hunger for freedom, her unspoken desires, her wounds, her suppressed brilliance, and her painful memories. These are the pieces society told her to conceal, to bury, to be ashamed of. They are the emotions she was told were too much, too loud, too dangerous. And yet here they are waiting patiently in the dark, demanding to be seen. To face the shadow is not to destroy it. It is to acknowledge it, to recognize that the capacity for darkness is not proof of evil, but evidence of wholeness. She learns that the shadow is not the enemy, it is the exiled self, the truth she once rejected in order to be accepted by others. But now there are no others to please. There is only her. And so she listens. She weeps, she breathes, she breaches. She allows what was once hidden to surface, not to control her but to be integrated. This process is not graceful. It is raw. It is difficult. It requires her to stand in the presence of her own pain without flinching, to admit that she has been both victim and perpetrator in her own life, to accept that inside here is not just light, but fire. And that this fire can burn or it can illuminate, depending on how it is carried. Jung taught that the shadow must be made conscious, or it will rule our lives from the dark. And this woman, in her solitude, begins that sacred work. She does not seek perfection. She seeks truth. She understands that real courage is not in fighting an external enemy, but in sitting with her own reflection and refusing to turn away. The world may never know the battles she fights behind closed doors, the nights she spends excavating her soul, the silent revolutions she enacts inside her own heart. But those invisible battles are forging her into something rare, a woman who is whole, not because she is flawless, but because she is honest. And in time she comes to love her shadow, not because it is pretty but because it is hers. It is part of her story, and she realizes that in embracing her darkness, she has not become lost. She has at last come home. Would you like the next keynote expanded in the same way? They say she is an outsider, that she doesn't fit, that she is too quiet, too intense, too different. Whispers follow her like shadows. People wonder why she is alone, why she doesn't blend in, why she walks her path without a circle of companions. To the world, she appears rejected. But they do not see what is truly happening. She is not being cast aside. She is being refined. Like gold in the fire, she is undergoing a process most fear to endure. Her solitude is not a mark of failure. It is the sign of transformation. Life, in its wisdom, has pulled her away from the crowd not to punish her, but to purify her. She is being stripped of illusions, of the need to please, of the desire to conform, of the compulsion to earn her worth through others' approval. What remains when those layers fall away is the truth of who she is. To be refined is to be reshaped, and reshaping hurts. It demands the breaking of the old self, the dismantling of inherited roles and identities that no longer serve. While others find comfort in sameness, she is pulled into the discomfort of growth. It is lonely, yes. It is painful. But it is not meaningless. Every moment she spends misunderstood, every time she is excluded, she is given a chance to ask, "Who am I without the world's gaze?" She begins to realize that rejection is sometimes a divine redirection. That not fitting in is not a flaw. It is a clue. It tells her that she was never meant to follow the beaten path. She was meant to forge her own. The fire that isolates her is the same fire that awakens her. And slowly, something begins to shift. She no longer seeks to be invited into spaces where she must shrink to belong. She begins to build a space where she can expand. This process, though invisible to most, is sacred. It is the path of individuation Jung described, a movement toward the authentic self, away from the collective masks and toward inner alignment. Most never walk it, but she does. And that makes her rare. Let them misunderstand her. Let them question her silence, her strength, her stillness. The truth is, she is not less because she walks alone. She is more aware, more whole, more alive. What the world calls rejection, the soul often calls initiation, and her soul is initiating her into something vast and unshakable. When she emerges from this refining fire, she will not return as she was. She will walk with quiet confidence, not needing validation, because she has already found her worth. She will not chase belonging. She will embody it, and those who once overlooked her will wonder how she became so strong, so centered, so radiant. They will not realize that the very solitude they thought would break her is what built her. Would you like me to expand the fourth keynote as well? Her days are not free from ache. There are nights when silence wraps around her too tightly, when memories resurface like ghosts, when the emptiness echoes through her bones. She has cried in secret, wept without comfort, broken down in places where no one could see. And yet, every time she thought she might shatter completely, she found within herself a quiet, persistent strength. Not the kind that roars, but the kind that endures. Her pain did not destroy her. It carved her. It hollowed out the shallow parts, dug trenches deep within her soul, and made space for something greater. Most people run from pain. They numb it, bury it, deny it. But she, left without distractions, had no choice but to face it. And in facing it, she learned its language. She learned that pain, when honored, does not diminish us. It awakens us. In the depths of sorrow, she uncovered truths no comfort could teach. She realized that pain is not just suffering. It is signal. It is the psyche's call to heal, to grow, to evolve. It pointed her to the wounds that had long festered beneath the surface. Abandonment, betrayal, shame, unworthiness. And one by one she met them. She sat with them, she listened. Where others might have closed their hearts, she kept hers open. The result was transformation. Her tears watered the seeds of her resilience. Her grief birthed empathy. Her heartbreak sharpened her intuition. Her isolation taught her discernment. and from her most vulnerable moments she drew her deepest power. This is what Jung meant when he spoke of the wounded healer. That those who have been through the darkness and survived can guide others through it. Not with theories, but with lived truth. Pain turned her into a mirror. Others now see themselves in her eyes and feel safe, understood, unjudged. She has been there. She knows what it is to hurt and still rise. And this makes her presence profound. She carries a strength that cannot be faked, a grace that was not gifted, but earned. Every scar is a symbol not of weakness, but of victory. This is the paradox the world often forgets. The very thing we think will break us is often what shapes us into who we were meant to be. Her pain was not the end of her. It was the beginning. The beginning of depth, of wisdom, of authenticity. In the fire of her suffering she found her truth, and now no one can take it from her. She no longer hides her wounds. She wears them with quiet pride. For they are not signs of damage, they are signs of passage. They are the markings of someone who has lived deeply, felt profoundly, and chosen, again and again, to continue. Would you like me to expand the final keynote next? There is something forming within her that the world cannot yet see. While others rush toward attention, she moves quietly her inner world, gathering wisdom, cultivating strength, learning the rhythms of her own soul. No one applauds her in this season. No spotlight follows her. There are no crowds, no affirmations. Only the stillness, only the work. But this is not the end of her story. This is the becoming. One day, others will look to her, not because she demanded it, but because she earned it. They will sense in her something rare, a presence forged through solitude, a voice shaped by silence, a depth born of pain, and they will come, not to admire, but to learn, to heal, to awaken, because something in her will speak directly to something in them. She has not read her wisdom in books. She has lived it in darkness. She has not memorized answers. She has wrestled with the questions. And that journey, that hard, sacred, lonely journey, will become her greatest gift to others. The woman with no friends, the one overlooked and misunderstood, will one day stand not above others, but beside them, showing them the map she once carved alone. She will not lead with dominance. She will lead with presence. With the fierce calm of someone who knows how it feels to lose herself and find herself again. With the quiet authority of someone who does not need followers, but inspires them anyway. There is something magnetic about one who has faced their shadow and embraced it, who no longer seeks to impress, but simply to be, who does not fear being alone because she has discovered her own company is enough. People will be drawn to her not because she is perfect, but because she is real. She is the kind of leader who does not demand your loyalty. She earns your trust, and it will not be her titles or achievements that matter most. It will be her energy, her integrity, her calm in the chaos, her ability to listen, to speak with clarity, to hold space for others the way no one once held space for her. She will be the guide she never had. She will be the mentor she once longed for. And all the loneliness, all the silence, all the inner battles will finally make sense. She will not return to the world seeking validation. She will return carrying medicine, the kind that heals hearts, awakens souls, and reminds others of their own strength. The very woman who once wondered if her pain had a purpose will become the answer to someone else's question. How do I survive? How do I begin again? And she will tell them, not with pride but with truth. You begin in the silence, you begin in the dark, you begin by standing alone, and from there, you rise. Would you like the entire speech now assembled into one flowing piece for a video or presentation? So, to the woman with no friends, you are not broken, you are becoming. This time is not a curse, it is a rite of passage. Your path is lonely because it is rare, but it is yours and it is powerful. Keep walking, for in the sacred stillness of your solitude, you are not just surviving, you are awakening.